Okay, so let's get this day kicked off by learning a new concept in Swift. And if we're going to be learning about something in Swift, a great place to do this is in the playground, as we've done before. So go ahead and open up the playground file that's on your desktop. Let's go ahead and clear out what we had before and now talk about math and doubles. So what we're going to be talking about here is one, how we can use Swift to do some math, and we're going to run into some issues here and introduce a new type. And remember, there are types in Swift, like int is a type, string is a type, and double is a new type that we're going to be learning about here. So enough of talking, let's go ahead and dive into it. Something that's awesome with Swift is that you can use it to do some math calculations. So very simply, if I wanted to say, what's 3 plus 5? I can type this into Swift, and if I run the code, you'll see over here on the right side, I get the output of 8. Now, a cool little feature of a playground here is if you don't always want to be hitting the run button, you can come down here, and if you do a click and a long press, you can change to run automatically, which once you hit this play button down here, the playground will always just calculate whatever it is that you have. So if I change this from 3 plus 5 to 3 plus 4, as soon as I make the change, it runs automatically and says, oh, okay, now this is equal to 7. So since we're going to be doing a lot of math problems here, I recommend doing this. And at any point, you know, it's taking too long, whatever, you can always hit this stop button and say, okay, I'll write some code. Then eventually, once you're ready, go back and run it. Or you could, you know, turn it back on to manually run. But with that said, what I'm trying to show you here is that you can do all sorts of math equations in Swift. We could say, you know, do the addition, we can do subtraction, we can do multiplication. Let's see, 3 times 6, something like that. And we can even do division. If I do like 100 divided by 25, something like that. You can see there's all valid answers to this. So it's kind of cool. Like if you ever have, you know, a little math problem that you just want to go ahead and figure out, you can actually just, you know, open up a Swift playground, punch in the information and figure out what the answer to that is. But what's really cool about Swift is that you don't just have to do numbers like this. You can actually put things into a variable. So for example, you know, let's say we want to make a new variable like the letter A, and we're going to say A is equal to 5, and we'll make a new variable B, which is equal to 7. We can use these two variables and do some math with them. So we can say A plus B, and that's going to give us whatever these two things are added together. And so we'll wait for the playground to update here. It says it's on auto run, but apparently not. There we go. We get the number 12. But we can do any sort of math problem that we want here. We can do division. If we wanted to, we can do like multiplication here. Let's go ahead and throw that in. And look, all of a sudden it's 35. So you can see it's pretty cool that we can use variables here. And in fact, we can actually take the result of a math problem and actually put it into a variable. So I could say variable C is equal to B minus A or something like that, right? And all of a sudden now when I do this, C holds the value of 2. You'll see over here on the output that 2 is what's inside of C now. So pretty cool that we can use variables. And, you know, this little simple example with, you know, letters like A and B, that's one thing. But, you know, let's say you wanted to do a little bit more of a complex thing. Like, you know, if you're trying to figure out how much speaking of silly examples, like how many carrots you could buy with the amount of money in your wallet. Well, you could say like var wallet is equal to $67. The cost of a carrot maybe is $2. These are some really fancy carrots. And you can basically say, you know, how many can I buy of this? So maybe like 60 or wallet divided by carrot, right? And then all of a sudden it can tell you what the answer to this is. And come on, playground, run for us. There we go. It's, you know, 33 carats. But this brings me to the point that I wanted to show you is that this is not actually the answer to 67 divided by 2. It should be 33.5. But the problem is that we are working with ints. And remember, int, short for integer, is a whole number. And if we ever do some sort of math equation, and I'm just going to really simplify it here. Let's say if I divide 3 divided by 4. What should be the answer to this? Well, it should be 0.75. Instead, I get the answer of 0. And you're like, 3 divided by 4 is definitely not 0. But the problem is that we're working with integers. And what we want to do is move on to something called a double. And a double is just anything that can go out to decimal points. So for example, to create a double, it's really simple. You just have to put a point and then a 0 on the end of things, or it doesn't have to be 0. It could be other decimals. But look, when I do 3.0 divided by 4.0, well, that gives us more the answer that we were expecting, like 0.75. And so these doubles, they don't have to be 0.0. Like I can say 3.14, like let's say I was doing a pi example, like 3.14 times 45, something like that. We can totally do this. And all of a sudden it's going to give us a number here on the output, right? And it's using all of the decimals, and that's going to work out. And you can go out to a lot of decimal places here with doubles in order to do this. And so again, this is one more type for you. I hate that this isn't auto-completing and showing us, there we go. The playground's being a little bit weird here. Hopefully this is just the beta version of Xcode that it's not doing that. But anyways, right, we can see the output of things, and it's pretty cool that this math is working out for us. But this is going to introduce a problem. I'm going to bring back our variable where we have a is equal to like 1, and then let's make another variable b, and this is equal to like 4.5. So we have a, which is an int variable, and then we have b, which is a double variable. And if we tried to do some math with these two things, like b plus a, well, you see, we're going to get some issues here. Xcode's going to yell at us and say, hey, you can't do any math with a double and an int. Now, you can do math in Swift as long as everything is of the same type. So, for example, if I turn both of these into doubles, well, then all of a sudden this becomes okay. And it's like, oh, yeah, you can add 2 doubles. That's fine. Also, if I make both of these ints, well, that's totally okay. You can go ahead and add 2 ints together. That's perfectly legal code here in Swift, but it's only when you try and mix these. If I turn this to like 1.6 or something like that, that you'll see that we get an issue because it's saying, whoa, you can't use multiple types when you're doing any sort of math. So that kind of leaves us at a little bit of a mystery point, and we're actually going to talk about how to do that in the next one. But for the time being, I've got a quick challenge for you. I just want you to do a math equation to determine how many weeks there are in a year. If you said there was exactly 7 days, 7 days for a week, how many weeks are there in a year with 365 days? Like, I want to know exactly how many weeks. It's not just the number 52, but it's going to be 52 point something. So we want to figure out what that is. So go ahead and do a math problem where you can divide the days of the year divided by 7 to find out how many weeks there are, okay? Go ahead, hit pause, do that now. All right, so hopefully that went well for you. All we're doing is 365.0 divided by 7.0. And I added these point zeros to make sure that I get a double back on this. And look, we get 52.1428 weeks in a year. Now, something that's a little bit misleading about this is I could technically have gone like 365 divided by 7. For whatever reason in Swift, if you are using just whole numbers, no variable, not whole numbers. If we're using numbers that don't have any variables with them, they'll automatically do the conversion of saying, okay, I have an int here and a double here. So I'm going to go ahead and convert the int into a double and go do this math problem. You'll notice here, if I had put these into variables like days is equal to 365 and variable days in a week is equal to 7.0, for instance, right? The exact same numbers, if I go ahead and say, days divided by days in a week, I'm going to get an error from Swift. And it's, in that case, it crashed us for it. Let's go ahead and open up the playground again. Again, the beauties of working on Xcode beta here, you're seeing it in the full light. But it's, for whatever reason, if you have just entered these numbers in on the fly, Xcode is smart enough to convert those. But if you're going to be using variables, well, that's when you have to say, oh, okay, 365.0, and then that's going to make things okay, is that when you've said, okay, here's a double, there's a double, let's go ahead and do some math with it. Okay, so let's go ahead and wrap this one up, and in the next one, we'll talk about how we can get over this issue of making sure that everything's the same type.